this isn't going to be a very long video, but I just want to touch on the subject of future proofing. Future proofing is not really a concept that most people should consider when buying a PC. And the issue with it is basically it's not going to be a good deal. You're never going to get a very good deal if you're planning to future proof your PC simply because you have to spend a lot in hopes that your computer will be relevant in a few years. And also, you're going to see a huge degradation, especially nowadays, I would say, because we're going into a future where we're probably going to have more core wars going on, or well, competing CPU maker is going to try to release a CPU with more cores to beat the other one. It's uncertain whether or not it's going to stop, say, at 16 cores and 32 threads going forward, or if it's just going to keep going on and on. In my opinion, it's probably going to go maybe on and on for a while. We're going to probably be stuck on 16 cores, 32 threads in the future for a bit, at least until Intel catches up. I don't see AMD trying to force more cores into their current CPU simply because they can't. There's a limit to how many cores they can shove on a 7 nanometer process. And Intel is just going to charge a whole lot more just because they increased the core count. And whatever's happening in the GPU side, we have like three competitors now: Nvidia, Intel, and AMD, at least coming in 2020. So I think if you even try to future proof now, you're just going to see a great depreciation in your. But that said, the whole idea of future proofing, I believe, and this is just basically my opinion, it's pretty much an unpopular opinion, but when you go to future proof, you're mostly thinking about an opportunity. And what I mean by that is like a lot of people may not have money going into the future, whereas they have money and disposable income now. And the reason for this is because life happens. Maybe you have less responsibilities now that you may have more in the future, and then you have less income, or who knows? Like you may have kids and you postpone buying a computer in the future. I've seen it happen a few times with a lot of people, and this is when maybe future proofing a PC may be good for you, especially if you're young. You may consider buying a really high end PC, and you may buy it and learn that it's not for you. But if you buy something that's kind of future proof in the sense, like, say, a 2080 Ti, 9900K, you might be able to use that computer, especially if you're just playing games, because usually games don't reach a threshold where they become unplayable based on console generation. So if you buy, I say, a 2080 Ti now, it's probably going to be comparable to the next generation of consoles, whether it be the PlayStation 5 or the next Xbox, and it'll likely perform better than those consoles. Hard to say since they're not out yet, but based on what's happened in the past, probably is what's going to happen. And you can probably use that computer that you built now for the next 5 years until those consoles become outdated. Yes, I know consoles get updated now every 2 or 3 years, but even so, they still somewhat support the original consoles that came out. So most games are also considering these things, and a lot of games are really stuck around that area of graphical abilities. So chances are, if you have a 2080 Ti, you can probably use it for 6 years. If you have, for instance, a 780 Ti right now, you can still use it. It kind of compares to a 3 gigabyte 1060, and that's still plenty useful today. Now, this isn't necessarily the best deal or the best idea or the best way of going by it, because your 780 Ti is already starting to show its age. But the thing that some people should consider is that it's still games. And what I mean by future proofing a PC is that you gain that opportunity. And I've heard people not understand this basically because I hear people, especially YouTubers, complain that future proofing is not a thing because you can buy something later on or you can save money, and this just doesn't make any sense because your computer is going to become outdated really quickly. And yes, all those things are true, but they kind of aren't really considering other people's lives and how your life may go from today to tomorrow. You just don't know. So you might not be that type of person that wants to or can go out and upgrade their PC every 2 or 3 years. So if you future proof your PC with that in mind, then you can go out ahead and buy something that's really high end, knowing that you can get some performance out of it, at least a decent performance for the next 6 years. Again, it's not going to be high end at all for the next 6 years. That just would just be ridiculous. You're probably going to be at the 6 year playing games at low settings, but the thing is, like, you can still do it. And basically, you get to enjoy the high end for a little bit while you still have it, and it stays high end. I would say for 2 years at least. Like if you have a 2080 Ti, even a 1080 Ti right now, if you bought it in 2017, basically two years ago, it's still a high end card this year, and it will probably remain so for the rest of this year. So that's 3 good years where this is you have a card that's basically considered high end. Now, the fourth year, you will probably see it not be as high end as it used to be, but it'll still be a very good contender for a lot of people. And when we get to the fifth year, again, it'll still be a very good card. It's around this time that you're starting to see like you can go to a store and pick up something really cheap that compares to it. But usually you don't see the benefits that you get with this card. You still have 11 gigabytes of VRAM. It's unsure whether or not you can buy a contender in 4 years' time, which will have it. There's a very likely chance because, again, the GPU market at the current point will probably see a lot of competition, and we're probably going to see this card phased out much quicker. But again, going back to a few years ago with the 780 Ti, you can still play games on that and it'll be fine. So if you're considering future proofing, you're mostly considering whether or not you you have that opportunity now and you want to secure that at least you will have that computer if it comes down to it for the next 5 or 6 years, and you'll be fine. You may even be fine for close to 10 years depending on how you see games and what you're interested in. Again, your life is going to change and you may find yourself not even interested in games within these 5 or 6 years. So it might not even matter. As long as you have something that you can use, for instance, for work and stuff, that's all you may care about. But when I'm usually talking about future proofing, this is the point I'm trying to make. It's not so much about having a PC that will operate the great levels in more than 4 years. That's just insane. That's not going to happen. It's also not going to be a great deal. Like, I see people not understand this concept over and over again. And for not, it's just not for everyone. Not everyone in the world is going to be able to necessarily upgrade their PCs every year, or they may not simply just not want to. So the idea of future proofing is for them. It's not, I would say, for the general public, which has the ability to buy it and the willingness to do so, who, especially the people on YouTube, like people who come here on YouTube, they're more likely to be PC enthusiasts or gaming enthusiasts, especially if you're watching this video and you may be willing to upgrade. But when people are talking about future proofing a PC, they're talking about past experiences of owning a PC and then also considering whether or not they needed to upgrade that PC to play games. And I don't mean play games at great settings or play games on the high end. I mostly mean being able to play them from start to finish, and they usually look okay and run okay. And that is very much doable. That's probably always going to be doable. And the reason for this is because even though tech upgrades a lot and it upgrades greatly in just a few short years or even a few days basically, um, it really doesn't change how game developers make games. Like, they still consider older tech simply because they need to sell those games. And because of that, you can technically future proof a PC knowing that if you buy high end, very high end stuff, you can still use it. Like I'm trying to explain right now, I'm using a GTX 760. It's already at its last legs. Like, it basically is obsolete. It does not play every game that's out there. But surprisingly, it can play a lot of games still, and it can do so at a very good setting as long as you're willing to compromise. And this is a 760. This isn't something I would recommend for future proofing at all. This is a 60 series GPU, and if I had a 780 Ti, chances are I wouldn't need to upgrade it this year. I could probably sit on that for a little bit longer before upgrading, probably within the next year, and if I really compromise, 2 or 3 years more. But that's simply not for everyone. This isn't something that is recommended for most people. It is just something to consider when you're buying brand new tech, and it's all based on your life. Whether or not you're going to have the money now and you're going to have it tomorrow, or where you see yourself going forward. And honestly, I don't recommend most people do this. I don't recommend most people go buy a PC considering that they can future proof it. I honestly believe people should buy something lower tech that gives them the best performance that they can get for their dollar, and then just frequently upgrade their PC, because that way you'll get the best of everything. You'll get to play games at very good settings, and developers are really considering people's opinions on games. I know people want 60 frames per second on every game. All developers know, but nowadays I think most developers also know people want more than 60 frames per second, and they're willing to offer that, especially at lower tech points. And I think in the future you'll see those upgrades, and you'll get to appreciate them more as time goes on, because everyone's going along with it, and then you can pay less and get more. In my opinion, having the highest of the best technology out there, the 2080 Ti, 9900K, or a Zen 2 processor when that comes out, simply won't be great for everyone, since they're just not going to be able to appreciate it, and they're just going to feel ripped off after a while. However, for people on YouTube and everyone else, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we want. We want the highest end, and I honestly believe it's the greatest thing. I can't. I find it really hard to go down below, say, 100 frames per second, simply because the screen starts to look slightly, like, you can see the jitter, and if you get used to it, you kind of don't want to see it. But again, this comes down to game by game basis. It's not for every game, and it's not for everybody. And especially if you start to focus mostly on the game, you kind of tend to forget about that. And I see this more frequently if I go to even games in the past, like console games, especially games like Ocarina of Time on the N64, which runs like at 20 something frames per second. Like, you'll notice that, like, it makes it almost unplayable at first, but once you get used to the game, you kind of don't care. And if you just care about playing games and focusing on playing games, you might not want the best of the best, simply because of price and where you are in life. And that's okay. Like, that's the thing that people need to understand. It's okay to not have the highest best tech. Like, it's just not for everyone. And there's nothing wrong with running a game at 60 frames per second. Sometimes even less, it could be doable. But that said, the concept again of future proofing is considering who you are, what you care about, what do you expect your life to be in a few years, and whether or not you're willing to pay more for, like, insurance, just in case that you can't change anything. It has nothing to do with getting the best deal. It has nothing to do with getting the best tech to last you and be the best tech for several years. That's just unpredictable and just insane to even consider. It's all about opportunity. And I hope that's clear to everyone. That's all I wanted to say. If you disagree with me, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you will, you can tell me about it. I'm open to that as well. But anyways, I hope this helps some people. And with that, I'm signing out, guys. Bye bye.